What's the weirdest sex act you've ever done alone? Story 1. I had heard about cock rings, the rubber ones and the plastic metal ones, and heard they make you harder for longer, so decided to try and improvise one day when my mom and sister went out. I found a metal ring that went on a curtain pole and had a little plastic clip on, so I removed that and got some cooking oil and went into my room, greased up the ring and slid it over my semi-flaccid penis and balls. It felt pretty good, so I grabbed a magazine and started to rub one out. The ring slowly moved further back, restricting blood flow and wedging itself tight against my balls and base of my dick. This thing was tight, and I suppose it was doing its job until after I came and wanted it to slide off. It wouldn't. It was there, right against my purple dick and balls for 30 minutes before Mum came home. I couldn't budge from it. I was in pain, so I had to call her. The look of utter horror, disbelief, disgust in her eyes will stay with me forever. By this time, my dick was the color, Ordure 301934, and I was in severe pain. My mum immediately called my dad. He drove from work about 10 mins, came upstairs, took one look at me, got some Vaseline from the bathroom, which I wish I had known about earlier. He got a thin piece of plastic and put Vaseline on it and slid it under the ring and kind of levered it a bit. The blood drained and my member subsided. He handed me a towel, ruffled my hair, picked up the ring, shut my bedroom door and went back to work. We never talked about it again. Story 2. Every year I help my dad with Christmas lights. I climb up on the roof and carefully clip all the lights onto the peaks. I grew up in a conservative house and only recently discovered how nice masturbating can be. Did you know that orgasms can help relieve period cramps? Who knew? Well, I have a particular fondness for the cowgirl position with my BF, but it absolutely destroys my knees. Sitting on my knees on a flat, even if it's soft surface, is difficult for me. So here I am, sitting on the warm roof, hanging lights on my house when my dad walks inside to get something. I'm straddling a roof peak all alone. The neighborhood is quiet, and I can see there's no one outside. I'm at an angle where I can't be seen from the ground anyway. My knees are at the perfect angle to not hurt in this position, and suddenly thoughts of the BF enter my head. I just start rocking back and forth on the peak of my roof. When my dad came back out, I was in a much better mood. Story 3. Not the act itself, I guess, but the event as a whole. We lived in the sticks, and internet shopping wasn't really a thing back then. Not that we had internet anyway. I was a horny but resourceful teenage girl, so I whittled myself a penis-like dildo out of a piece of firewood, sanded it, and varnished it. I was around 14-15 at the time. I tested it out once without a condom and freaked out about the potential toxicity of the varnish. Then used a disposable latex glove because there were no condoms in the house, and the thought of buying them was mortifying. In the end, I was too paranoid about it being found, so I tossed it into the fire the next time the fireplace was lit. Story 4. I was quite horny in my early teens, so I looked up innovative ways to masturbate. As it seems, if you hollow out a cucumber and microwave it, it does not feel like the inside of a vagina. I was left with the most disgusting vegetable you've ever seen, and a memory that lives under the surface of my dignity. Story 5. Not me, but a dude that was a few years older than me in high school. This dude, Ted, decided that it was a good idea to fuck a Head & Shoulders shampoo bottle while he was in the shower. His dick ended up getting stuck in the bottle, and he had to go to the ER to get it removed. Afterward, he was forever known as Ted & Shoulders. Story 6. When I was in middle school, I ended up in-school suspension where I was essentially locked in a supply closet with a desk in it for a week and a half. The supply closet was connected to the principal's office, but no one really came in to check on me besides at lunchtime when it was mandatory to bring their closet prisoners food. Anyways, that closet turned into my masturbatory. Very important. Masturbatory studies and experiments were conducted during my time there. Very scientific and groundbreaking work was headed by myself and my assistant, right-hand woman. Great assistant, and still with me to this day. Years later, when I was in high school, I returned to speak with the new principal of that middle school about supplies for a club project I was working on. I went into the closet where the desk was to gather a few boxes she prepared for me. Lo and behold, I noticed, for the very first time, a camera trained right on the desk. To this day, I have no idea if that camera was there while I was there. It's the exact same as the rest of the cameras in that school, so I feel like it was. Story 7. I was 16. My first job was at a wedding venue, working as a server during the receptions and then helping with cleanup afterward. This was a pretty ritzy place, and we had to have the floors looking like mirrors before we went home. That took hours with a buffer washer, stripping it down to get rid of the dancer's scuff marks and then building it up with layers of wax. The handle of the buffer was adjustable, and being a small chick, I found it easiest to control if I sort of wedged into the top of my pelvis. That way I could use my ugly little boy hips to move it around. No upper body strength needed. One night, the buffer either malfunctioned or worked better than ever before, depending on if you were asking my boss or my lady parts. It vibrated like it was about to fall apart, due to an improperly installed brush head. I didn't mind, though. As soon as I tucked that sucker's handle up onto my pelvis, the most wonderful things started happening in the region just a couple of inches below that. I looked around, did a quick adjustment to lower the handlebar just a tad, and then fired that big boy up. 10 minutes of that, and my eyes were permanently rolled back into my head. My entire middle body, from my knees to my floating ribs, was a throbbing pool of liquid pleasure. Every couple of seconds, the eccentric rotation of the misaligned brush would throw one big vibration in, making my hips buck and my breath freeze in my chest. I vowed to strip wax off every floor in the greater Chesterfield metropolitan area. I was going to marry that buffer. I was going to write Mrs. Clark Buffer in my Trapper Keeper at school next Monday. I loved that buffer. And then I realized that I had an audience. Half of the rest of the crew was standing at the kitchen door watching me nuke my genitals with the handle of an industrial floor polisher. I instantly pushed the thing away from me, losing control. It spun wildly, wrapping the cord around itself and flipping over onto the floor, spraying wet, soapy water all over the place. Thankfully, all the tables were pushed up against the other side of the room. I was embarrassed, but I soldiered on, unwinding the cord and going back to stripping the floor as if nothing other than a loss of buffer control had occurred. I caught a little ribbing about it, but my boss put an end to it quickly. Which makes sense. You don't let your crew get that raunchy around a 16-year-old girl. And apparently, I was not the first to discover the joys of buffer-induced vibrations. Over the next few weeks, a couple of the other female members of the crew related their stories about how they had found out that a slight adjustment of the pad and handle could make wonderful things happen. They were just a little better about not pulling a When Harry Met Sally moment while their coworkers watched. Story 8. I tried to use hand sanitizer as a lube once. Don't try it. Story 9. My grandmother, bless her soul, was the sweetest, most innocent woman you'd ever met. She would stay with us sometimes and help out around the house. One year, for Christmas, she bought me a pack of hankies. Obviously confused, I wanted an explanation. She said to me that I need to use hankies to blow my nose into, instead of all my clothes, because she did the washing and saw all the crusty stains on them. I am sorry, Grandma. I am really sorry. Story 10. Poured shampoo down my urethra, thinking it would generate some sort of pleasure. It did not. Story 11. One time I heated up a 5-layer bean burrito from Taco Bell for about 150 seconds before trying to use it as a fleshlight. I went balls deep and caused a first-degree burn on my crotch. Yes, I was a teen when I did this. Yes, I worked at Taco Bell. No, I would not recommend it. No, that's not how we made sour cream. Story 12. Got so horny that I masturbated with a carrot and went to see my then BF with the carrot still inside me, 20 minutes bus ride, just to be greeted by his mom at the door. Story 12. I kind of have this fetish where the idea of being experimented on or being the product of a Frankenstein's monster kind of experiment is a big turn on. I also have a fetish for being forced to drink liquids. So, one day I decided to try combining the two. I set up some spooky green lights in my living room, then take some plastic tubing I have from other hobbies and make myself a siphon, with one end down my throat a little way, and the other in a big-ass cup of Gatorade sitting on a table above me. May as well hydrate, am I right? I laid down on my back with a towel under me and just kinda let the siphon go. It didn't last long. The weight changed so rapidly the tubing pulled the glass over, spilling like half-gallon of Gatorade all over me and my carpet. I had put towels down, but it was just so much it still soaked through. So here I am, sitting in the middle of my living room, naked, covered in Gatorade like an asshole. It wasn't a highlight of my solo sexual exploits, but it's a good story I don't ever get to tell, lol. Story 13. Made a fake vagina with a rubber glove, empty pasta sauce jar, a bath sponge, and a rubber band. Then fucked it for weeks as a lonely teenager. Comment: this dude is so Italian he fucked a pasta sauce jar. Story 14. Dug a penis-size hole in the ground, filled it with packing grease. Fucked it. Comment: you literally fucked the planet. Story 15. Spent a whole day during school break lazy, in bed, seeing how many times I could ejaculate. The answer for 17-year-old me was 12 times. 44-year-old me has not yet repeated the experiment, but my guess is once. Story 16. So, a buddy and I that lived together went out drinking one night, got sloshed and had a great time. We both woke up early the next morning and headed back to the apartment. Now he's a decent cook, so he said he'd whip us up some omelets as hangover food. I was stoked as I felt like shit. So, he gives me my plate and we both go to our respective rooms. I get about 3-5 bites in and I'm just way too hungover to be eating anything of real substance without risk of throwing it up. Now, a weird thing about myself. I'm sure it happens to others, but I get super horny when hungover. I don't understand why, but it happens. Normally, I'll beat off and immediately hate myself as the headache from the hangover comes back full force. But this time, instead of beating off like a normal person, I looked at that omelet and thought, I bet that would feel amazing. So I am throwing caution to the wind. I fucked that omelet. Just really gave it the business until I finished. Regret and disdain for myself came rushing back to me along with my headache as I threw the omelet away in the trash and crawled into bed to sleep the rest of my hangover away. Story 17. Once when I was a teen, I masturbated on horseback. And no, before anyone says anything weird, it wasn't anything bestiality related. I was always forced to go on horse ride camping trips with my parents and had to sleep in the front of the horse trailer on a cot, so no privacy, and was in the middle of the woods, so no bathroom or anything. I was really horny that weekend for some reason, and so after we finished our group trail ride, I said I was going to ride more by myself and rode off into the woods. I rubbed one off up on top of the saddle really quickly, then rode back to camp like nothing ever happened. I'm so glad no one happened to come by. Hormones as a teen are insane. That horse was probably like, WTF she is doing up there, and why am I having to stand here like this in the middle of nowhere? Lol. Story 18. I'll start by saying I'm glad I never got my dick ripped off. I was sexually repressed by religion, and it led to weird sex things. Our top-load washing machine had just the right amount of vibration, and I discovered I could run it with the lid open by jamming some pennies into the hinge area. The top of the spindle had a whole cup in the top, where you are supposed to add bleach or fabric softener or apparently dick. Wrap my dick in something soft, lay across the washing machine and put it the bleach hole. Let me tell you, when it hit the spin sickly, I didn't last long. Thanks for bringing up these horrifying times in my life. So this is the end of the story. Tell me what you think about these stories in the comments section. Like and subscribe for more videos.